Well, this probably should be 2 slides. I think I snuck in the Thermidorian reaction because it wasn't in your textbook. So there's a lot to go over here. So the end of the terror. I mean, that's the basic idea. So in this slide, we're going to talk about the end of the terror, this egalitarian reform, and the beginning of a new conservative response. So during the terror, I talked about in the last slide that the revolutionaries eliminated basically all feudal remnants of feudalism. They abolished slavery. They introduced new inheritance and radical family reforms, expanded voting franchises, and by this period of time, as we're moving forward, Robespierre is caught in the middle. So he's in Paris. He's a Jacobin. He's in line with the sans culottes, the workers of France. They're extreme. And also, on the outside, he believes that there's all these people trying to undermine the revolutions and trying to undermine what he's trying to create in a republic. And he gets so bad that he starts arresting even some of his friends, including the famous lawyer Danton, all right, who was sent to the guillotine. And everybody is worried that they're going to be the next, including Robespierre, who was able to foil multiple assassination attempts. And as time goes on, he actually becomes a little bit more withdrawn. Now, by 1794, the war was going good for France, and there was no serious counter-revolutionary threat. But meanwhile, at the same time, the prisons are packed, and even during the last 6 weeks, 1,300 executions are taking place. So things are going well for France, but the terror is actually at its peak. So people are going to get tired of this. And Robespierre is going to start to face public ridicule. And he goes into kind of like his own little self-banishment. And he becomes very withdrawn. And then he comes back. He calls out that he's going to punish individuals, but he doesn't name names. And this leads everybody on edge. And it leads people to turn on him because everybody in that assembly is thinking who is it? It could be me. I could be next. So what ends up happening is this group called the Thermidorians, all right, because they took over on the 9th month, which was called Thermidor. 35 deputies speak against him. He defends himself as the cries of tyrant drown him out. Eventually, the convention votes to arrest him and 5 other men. As they go to arrest him, he's actually shot in the jaw, but he was still arrested, and he was guillotined that night. Almost 100 other Robespierre supporters followed after that, and the Thermidorians take control. The Thermidorians is a very, very conservative response to the terror. So I keep talking about in history this push-pull, we go one way, we come back. So they're going to keep some of the Enlightenment ideas, but we're going to go back towards a much, much, much more conservative. So one of the things they're going to debate is, well, what kind of government are we going to create? They're going to blame Robespierre for all the problems that happened during the revolution, and they are going to talk about creating a constitutional monarchy. But the problem is Louis's family had all been killed. His son had died in a prison at the age of 10. His brother, Louis XVI's brother, was still alive and declares himself king, but they didn't want to quite go all the way back that way. All right. So they create this thing called the Directory. Let me find my notes here. The Directory was they create a new constitution that forms the Directory. And under this new constitution, only the wealthiest taxpayers could become electors. So all men could vote, right? But their vote didn't have tons of power because only the wealthiest people actually could choose the electors. So it's kind of similar to the U.S. system, but it's more based on money. So they established a bicameral legislature, which, if you remember, is going to take hands away from the people. Unilateral is going to be closer to the people who vote. And it's going to create an executive, 5 men known as directors, and that's why it's called a directory. Now, what is the directory going to do? They're going to relax the religious laws, so we're going to move back that way, which is going to make probably more people in France happier than not, because that was creating division. Churches are going to be reopened, and they're going to focus more on secondary education, and they're going to open universities to train teachers, doctors, and experts. They fail to find a way to create a universal education system, as the primary schools couldn't find teachers in certain areas to actually teach students in foreign areas or areas like that were more low income. So they fail in many ways, but basically the elites are the ones who are going to get educated. Now, the Thermidorian reaction, and this is going to lead us into Napoleon, which is the next, are going to fight against these Jacobins. Now, the Jacobins had these clubs where people would talk and spread pamphlets. They're going to be shut down. Clubs are going to be shut down, and what's going to happen is the money is going to flow back into Paris, and people are going to start dressing up again, and wealth is going to now be on display, and the museums are going to open, and the plays and the theaters in Paris now is going to become more of like a capitalist high society place. So we went all the way from the terror, sans culotte, and now we're almost back to square one, except we don't have a king, we have the directory.